Welcome to the fifth post-premiere conversation. I'm Zuping Song, pianist and founder of NakedEye, and I'm here after the flute premiere with Susanna Loewy and composer Randy Woolf. That was a really great set, Susanna. Really enjoyed all the pieces you played. I love that you played Randy's piece twice. And I love that you started with it and that you ended with it. You had some pretty intense pieces in the middle, but starting and ending with a really calming piece just kind of clinched it. Do you want to talk a little bit about how it's been for you since March? I know lots happened to you. You have a new baby. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how it's been.
Well, for the first month and a half, I was practicing really consistently. I had this kind of streak going, and so even though I didn't have any performances, I was still practicing every day, and I was up to 99 days in a row of practicing. And then my water broke, and so I
Oh,
did not get to 100 days. On April 19th, Asher was born, and so it was kind of in the height of the pandemic in Philadelphia. We went in through like a side entrance into the hospital, so that it was, there were nobody with the virus would be anywhere near up. And when we exited the hospital, we exited a completely masked world. Whereas when we went in, it wasn't quite like that. We were there for about a week. So and then I have to say, I didn't practice. I didn't touch the flute for about 3 weeks, and then after that, I practiced really inconsistently, really only just not to make a fool out of myself with my students. And I didn't really have much motivation. I was watching all of these people post concerts online and creating all of these innovations with different collaborations, and I just kind of felt depressed by it. I know that it was supposed to be really inspiring overall, but it just felt like, really, this is what we're doing now? And but the answer is yes, this is what we're doing now. It was really, this commission and this working towards this performance, over the past month, that has made me feel like a musician again. Um, and so yeah, thank you for that. And it, doing things virtually doesn't have to mean that they're not real. And you know, figuring out how to find the figure out how, if we can all figure out how to still be musicians. I think that's the important part. And yeah.
yeah. I mean, do you feel like? This is a question we're all asking ourselves. So, do you feel like you're not fully present right now as a musician? That you're kind of in limbo. You're waiting
Yeah.
for things to get back to semi-normal.
Yeah, and I think that, there's this realization that it's not going to happen anytime soon. And that's the part that makes you feel like, okay, then you kind of have to take things into your own hands, or you're going to become a different person. And maybe that's okay too. I mean, that's something that I've been thinking through, especially with, a son, is just like, okay, well, where am I going to take this? I can still teach, I can still do the administrative work.
Hmm.
But teaching has its limitations also over Zoom. It was fine for a while, and then all of a sudden it gets really frustrating because you can't hear tone quality the same way. And
Right. That's
um, you know, you can have the best setup in the world on your end, but if your student doesn't have the same thing, it's just kind of um, so. But ultimately, I feel that I'm a musician, and that performance is part of that. And so, I do think that this sort of thing is important to me.
Yeah, I think we're all going through this. We're just trying to find our footing, um, and it's getting better. I think. I guess people are adjusting, and we're finding different ways to communicate. Um, but how was working for practicing for this for you? I know you're juggling a lot of things, and having a baby in the middle of all this is hard too. It's great, but I'm sure it comes with its own challenges. How was practicing just on the physical level? I'm just kind of curious because you have to use your diaphragm. I mean, it's like a very physical thing.
Yeah, well, so I had a C-section, so that was part of the reason that I didn't, and I did. It took me longer to recover, so I didn't even touch the flute for a lot longer than I thought. I thought that I would be the type of person that was just gonna jump right back into everything, and I have to say, like, 2 months went by, and I was still exhausted and just, um, didn't want to.
Mm.
Like people were asking me to do things that I felt really resentful of, and and I'm not referring to this at all. Just in general, like
Mm.
making a phone call felt extraordinarily hard. um,
Yeah.
but then once I started, I've said this in other instances as well, and it's kind of cheesy, but once I can get a structured warm up into my day, I feel so much better. So
Mm.
if I just play like 30 to 40 minutes of scales, then I feel like I can start to learn pieces. But it's when and preferably it's twice that length, right? But I mean, if we're talking about baby and all the other things, like 30 to 40 minutes will do. And so if I can do that regularly, like really every day, then learning new music doesn't feel difficult, or like it feels like it's the next thing to come.
Mm.
But getting that regular warm up proved to be a lot harder than I thought. And you know, we rely on our bodies so much, our physical bodies, and so when all of a sudden they're not working the way we expect them to, it's kind of like overwhelmingly depressing isn't the right word. It's just it feels overwhelming in its impossibility because you just don't know what to do when all of a sudden your body isn't doing what you're used to.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to find ways to structure our day. That was really, really well put. Like the simplest things, like doing scales, or just doing things that you normally would do naturally with a natural structure around you, like your day, going to work, whatever your structure is. But I think we all lost that to some degree. So finding that again is something that we all have to work at.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, good to see you. See you.
Hi there, boy. It's been difficult.
I see two of you. I see you from far away and really close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go turn off the other. I'll be right back.
Okay. I was gonna say that. Oh, that's pretty cool, though. We have two.
I know it is cool. It's like a.
Just leave it. It's kind of our world now. We can do a lot of things that we can't do live. Be in two places at the same time.
Whatever you guys were just saying, I missed.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, it's really,
Yeah.
it's getting more and more complicated over here. I think we're okay now. All right, I'm in the dark kitchen on Cathys Mac. The kitchen being dark because we have a massive power outage here, but it only affects half the
We
apartment.
look great. I mean, the lighting is fine. So,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
What a beautiful piece, Randy. Thank you for writing
Oh,
it.
thank you so much.
On the
Sure.
show, we all needed that, calm and that sense of, deepness. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to write it? I know you had a very short window, and how do you deal with short deadlines and all that?
Well, it was a strange and lonely experience. I have a friend's apartment that I use for a composing space a lot, and it was in the early days of COVID, of course. And when you're talking about routines, I have a nice routine there. It's about a 40-minute walk, and I go there and meditate and then compose.
Mm.
And it's just a very quiet, lonely place, a good place to work. And I really didn't think about it much at all. I wrote the piece very quickly, actually.
Mm.
And I think there was just a lot of feeling and a lot of things to think about then. And in my other pieces recently, I've been really avoiding virtuosic passages and notey, busy sorts of things. And I think that this was really a culmination of a lot of that. And it was a good combination of the situation and the things I've been looking to do musically anyway. Also, I think it's my 13th piece for flute.
I was going to say, you've written a lot for flute. The first piece we played of yours was a while ago, it was probably 8 years ago, was Everything is Green, which is an absolutely beautiful piece. So if you don't know,
No, thank you.
If you don't know that piece, you should go hear it. I think there are a lot of videos out there or sound clips, but that's an absolutely beautiful piece. It's one of those pieces that has soundtrack with words. We actually have the words of David Foster Wallace that really works. And I could hear a little bit of that in this piece with Susanna, especially when the soundtrack comes in at the end. It's very reminiscent of that
Oh,
for me. Don't know if that was conscious or not. But I was going to ask you, you mentioned your setup. So you still have that studio, your friend's place. Because I was going to ask, last time we talked, you were in the process of trading places with Cathys, I think. So Cathys was going to spend more time in the apartment, and you were going to go to. But I guess you're still going to that apartment then to work.
well, I have two now. The place where I do some math tutoring, which is just a few blocks away, I can use that in the morning
Yeah.
when my friend is in town. So it's very nice. I've never composed on a main business street like this Court Street here, where all the stores and restaurants are. I feel like I'm another store. It's a very
Mhm.
different place to compose.
Yes, for you,
It's a
it's working out then. So you both have your own spaces, and you're not.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for Kathy. She has a whole setup for her like pieces with electronics, so like a really nice stereo right underneath the piano. And she's been traveling to different rehearsal spaces for forever,
Mm.
like over 30 years, I think. So I think it's very nice for her. Now, my relationship with my cat has suffered, however. She's much less interested in me now that I'm not home during the mornings.
Yeah, you're the absentee owner.
E- Exactly.
Well, she probably has a new relationship with Kathy then, because Kathy's around more, isn't she?
It was already better with Kathy, and now it's even better. So that's the one problem with it. But
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about um, your anti-fragile pieces. I don't know if you're still writing them. I just thought that the idea of them was so interesting. Um,
oh, thanks.
you've written a series. I don't know exactly how many. You started numbering them, and then I think one of them was you wrote for piano for me. I think that's part of the set. But you've written
Yeah.
for different combinations, piano and violin for trio, I think also. So could you explain a little bit where the idea of anti-fragility comes from, and then why you decided that was what you wanted to work on for a series, and how has that maybe changed or evolved your style?
Well, I haven't done one of those in a while. The idea of anti-fragile comes from this writer. I really like Nassim Taleb. I don't quite know what to call him. I guess he's a philosopher. He's a mathematician who also, whoops, sorry, my headphones just fell off. But I guess I can keep talking even though my headphones aren't on. He is also a trader of stocks and options and wrote some very technical books on them and made a ton of money using his math ideas and philosophical ideas, which come from the Stoic writers, the Greek and Roman Stoics. So he's just a really interesting combination of things. And he had this idea of anti-fragile, that there are some things that are fragile, that if something goes wrong or there's a mistake or error, it falls apart. And there are some things that are robust, things that can survive errors well. But then anti-fragile is something that gets better when there are insults or errors or problems. And a really good example is your bones and your muscles. That when you work out, of course, you're injuring on a small level your bones and your muscles, and it makes them stronger. He also talks about the government in Switzerland has a bunch of these. It's made of cantons that are very strong, powerful, and there isn't really a strong central government. He says it's very inefficient, but they've never had a Hitler or a Stalin take over, and it's really not possible in their system. So this is this idea of anti-fragile. With music, you could say that classical music is fragile. If something goes wrong, it just ruins what's going on.
Hmm.
Jazz is robust. If something goes wrong, it's not a good thing, but you can recover better. And maybe punk rock is anti-fragile. The more things go wrong and the more chaotic it is, up to a point, the better it is. So since all my pieces tend to be, no matter what I do, extremely difficult to play, even slow pieces seem to always present a lot of problems that way, I thought it would be interesting to try anti-fragile and try and incorporate the things that go wrong in my pieces to see, could I make a piece that's basically designed to go wrong,
Hmm.
and try and get rhythmic effects and tonal effects that are not possible with regular notation. So I asked people to, like, one of the players speeds up while the other one slows down. And there really isn't a way for them to stay together in that, but then you get these very interesting rhythms and textures that I don't think you could get some other way. I mean, in a way, it's like the Polish composers of the 50s, like Penderecki and Lutoslawski. But in my music, it's in a much more traditional kind of formal context, which doesn't usually go with that kind of aleatoric thing.
Right. Yeah, in the piano piece, you do write for one person, for two hands. Like one hand is accelerating, the other one is decelerating. And that's actually incredibly difficult for the first time when you try. It's like you have to retrain your muscle memory, but also your brain to say we don't play together, because since 4 years old I've been conditioned to play together somehow, even if it's multi-rhythmic cells and all that. I can do if it's written out, but when it's like free form, deceleration, acceleration, that took a while. That took a while to get used to. But then once you pass that hurdle, then you gain a different kind of freedom.
Oh, that's great.
Which is pretty exhilarating. You learn a different form of coordination, I guess. So that's and in that piece also you used a lot of Chopin quotations. Is that something, was that new? I know that you have a lot of hip hop and blues. It's kind of the core of the music. Chopin was different, I think, for me anyway, to see that.
Actually, that's what I used to do in the 1980s. That's my earliest pieces were very much like that, a collage of romantic and classical elements, not so much quotes, but home written things. And then over the years, my origins in blues and rock, like so many composers my age, I got more and more interested in bringing them back. I don't know, I think for me, a lot of that stuff has run its course. It was new 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But I find lately I've been much more interested in references to classical and romantic. And actually now I'm working on a series of electronic arrangements of the Well-Tempered Clavier fugues.
Oh.
So there'll be one live pianist will play the inner voices, and the subject and the answers for the most part are what's in the electronics.
Interesting. And the electronics will be what kind of sounds are you pairing that with?
A very select group of granular synthesis. It's sort of a way the sound is cut into little tiny dots and then moved all around. So it makes very kind of complicated echoey textures and things. All the sounds are distortions of a piano sound. I don't really have a good vocabulary for describing them just now, but they're very active, basically.
But they all come from the piano, so they're basically variations on the piano.
Yeah, they're all from sampled piano. It's interesting though, Wendy Carlos's Switch Time Bach. If I use any sounds that sound like a synthesizer like that, it immediately sounds like Switch Time Bach. Yeah. So it becomes something I'm really trying to avoid. It's such a powerful idea that she had that it's sort of like jazz in the orchestra always sounds like Leonard Bernstein. And Bach on synthesizers always sounds like Wendy Carlos.
Right. It's very evocative, for sure. Yeah. So what are you working on now? What are your projects?
Well, I'm in the middle of this Well-Tempered Clavier thing.
Right.
In terms of new pieces, I just wrote a piece for a fellow you might know, Darren Lynn, the percussionist for NakedEye.
Great.
He has a group called. It's for string quartet and percussion. He has this new group, Sunflower, I think it's called, and that's composed, but it's not yet written down and sent to him. And I've been doing a song cycle that I started before COVID. I have a bunch of them for guitar and voice. Two different friends of ours, poets, Gary Ralph, who I think was part of the concert tonight, and Megan Duffy.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we'll see. I don't know. No concerts. It's lessen the demand for music, for new music.
Yeah. I mean, all your projects are meant for live, right? For the concert setting.
Well, the Well-Tempered Clavier piece is, I think I wanted to start it now. It's an idea I had for a while, but it'll be such a big project. It seems like a good thing to start now, and it will work very well online, I think. Of course, I'll be sending it to you, and Cathy is getting some nice microphones, and so she can do a concert out of our apartment.
Yeah, great. I watched a couple of Cathys Things, and I thought that she sounded really, really great. it's nice to have
Thanks.
a home setup that works, especially when you have soundtrack, and those are tricky to dial in. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So, and Susanna, what about you? What are you working on now? What will you be working on in the coming?
In terms of performances.
In terms of anything really.
All right. Well, I have a lot of private students. I teach at both Kutztown University and Rowan University, so I have flute studios at both of those schools. So that'll all start up in September. And then I'm also the program director for an organization called Project 440, which teaches leadership and entrepreneurship to high school musicians. So I'm just really making sure that the high school musicians of Philadelphia are ready for today's world, whatever that means. So I developed the curriculum and I help to teach and implement the programs for that. And then performance-wise, the Inscape Chamber Orchestra that I play with in DC has some recordings planned for the fall. And so, we're hoping that still happens. And then also some like socially distanced type performances with the National Gallery of Art. That's tentative in the fall for late October, early November. And otherwise, we're going to Maine for a month. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but kind of realized, this is probably the one time in my life where it's 100% online. There's no reason that we have to be any particular place.
Right.
So we got a house on a lake in Maine, and we're gonna go up there for a month. Yeah, the trash isn't being picked up in Philly, so it's not great, and it just feels like it's time to get out of the city for a little while.
Wow, they stopped trash collecting. I didn't hear about that.
Well, it's mainly, it's actually the recycling that's really been about a month now, and trash comes eventually, just like a few days, but while people are, it's the summer, so there's bugs and other things. Yeah.
It's time to get out. Yeah, I mean that's one of the upsides of this. If there's going to be an upside, is that we're not tethered geographically. I mean, we're already not that tethered, but now you just can pick up and go. So that's great. You'll get some time in the city.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll still be doing all the work virtually, like teaching and the program directing and everything.
Yeah.
But, we'll be able just to kind of enjoy nature and each other, I guess. We've gotten a lot of time with each other, but, more.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm excited. So that's mid-September through mid-October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this fall we're going to see some tricklings of either outdoor performances or controlled situation indoor performances. I think people are really itching to do that. I don't know that I'm ready to go indoors anywhere actually. Even if I'm, I don't know when I'll be ready. So for me, outdoor is okay, but indoor, not sure.
It's super problematic as a flute player, because masks aren't possible, and you're blowing a high velocity of air at people.
Yeah.
And so I don't see a way around it. I don't see a way that is possible until we have a solution, which will happen, So,
yeah. So, well, it was great to talk to you both. Before we get booted out of this session, Randy, do you have anything you want to say? Any last thoughts?
No, I thought I left my focus. I was just sort of falling asleep sitting here. I'm really sorry.
I'm the one who's supposed to say that.
Well, it's a good time. It's a good time to find a volunteer thing to do. Cathie just found a volunteer thing to do, and I've been teaching some math lessons to these twin sixth graders.
Wow.
So since we all have a lot of time, and there's like essential workers, kids, and stuff like that, it's a good thing to do and get your mind off of all this stuff.
Yeah, one thing that would be fun to do is, I know that there's some people experimenting with programs like Jack Trip. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it supposedly allows you to play in sync and be able to improvise in real time with somebody else who's not there. So I think it's dependent on different things like location, obviously your internet speed and all that, but I've seen instances where it's actually really convincing. So that I feel like that's something that could be fun to try with Cathys. That could be my,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
one of
great
those places where we could do two piano, but we won't need two pianos in one room. We each have our own. So we
That would be great.
could maybe play around with that. So yeah.
Send us something about that.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I have to go. I just
Yeah.
can't.
Go ahead.
We
We're ending
thank you.
this. We're ending this.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thanks both so much. Good night, everybody.
okay, see you, Randy. Susanna, I'll see you. I'll be in touch. We'll do some recordings this fall. Thanks again for the superb performance. We'll talk again. Thank you all for joining us. Next week, I'll be premiering a new piece by John Russell. I hope you can tune in and have a great week, and see you later.